For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon Durey-Hove. Political and trend analyst JP Landman joins me to discuss his new book, The Long View, Getting Beyond the Drama of South Africa's Headlines. Tell us about the title you've chosen for your book. Why do you believe it's important to get beyond the drama of South Africa's headlines?
The title of the book, The Long View, is really about what you can call trend lines. It's about things that happen not just today, yesterday, but things that happen over the longest period of time. And the title comes from a book which was written by the editor of The Economist after he retired. And it just struck me as very, very powerful that a journalist, a person who spent his whole life at The Economist, his whole working life at The Economist, wrote a book, and in it he said, the problem with the journalist, like the instant analyst, is that we overemphasize the short term and we underemphasize the longer term. And that's really, and what he called for was a long view. And that's really where the title came from, because when I read the book, it must have been about 10 years ago, that really struck me. It stayed with me for life in general, but also I think particularly for us here in South Africa. We get so involved in instant analysis. We get so involved in the news of not only of today, but of the last hour or so, that we forget about things that worked us up, or that had us concerned, or that we were happy about a month or 2 months or 3 months ago. So that's really where the idea of the long view came from. And I took that, and that's the title of the book.
The first section of your book examines the circumstances making a modern, successful society. What do you believe these circumstances are, and do you believe that South Africa has what it takes to become successful?
Well, I discuss 8 of those circumstances or forces in the first section of the book. 6 of them, I think, work in South Africa's favour, and 2 of them work against us. The 2 that work against us is inequality between rich and poor, but also social capital. However, those 2 negatives you must balance against the 6 what I think are positive forces. And the 6 are basically economic growth in relation to population growth. So the second section of the book is about demography. I think it's very important to compare those 2. Then what's happening in our labour market, and there, counterintuitively, the South African labour market is probably not as bad as the headlines always suggest, because we have a unique paradox in our labour market. We have higher unemployment, that's absolutely correct, and we're concerned about that. But at the same time, we're also employing more people. That's the paradox. More unemployed, more employed. And as long as we keep on employing more and more people, it means that we're enlarging the base of society. We create more consumers, that helps economic growth. We create more taxpayers that can help to carry the society, and so on. And then there are 3 more issues or forces which are slightly more, shall I say, abstract. The first 3 are very numbers orientated, and you've got graphs and so on. The next 3 deal with what I call an open society, creative individuals, and unlearning and relearning. And those 3 sections deal with the ability of a society to realize its own mistakes, to realize that it's doing the wrong thing, and to make a U-turn. That's really what it's about. Look, nobody in life forever take all the right decisions. There's no such a thing. Companies, individuals, couples, countries, from time to time you take the wrong decision. The question is, can you recognize it, make a U-turn, recover, and improve? That is really the core of why I believe in an open society. And in an open society, I think that's easier than in a closed society. You can just compare South Africa to Zimbabwe, and then you see it. And there I think South Africa has got a very strong force in its favour, the fact that it's an open society.
How do you believe South Africa's National Development Plan can be successfully implemented into reality? And why do you think there is opposition to the National Development Plan in some trade union circles?
Well, trade unions obviously feel threatened by what you can call the economic underpinnings of the plan. And to some extent one can understand that. Some of it is purely ideological. They just do not buy into the philosophical approach of the plan, or what they see is the philosophical approach. And I think one must treat that with a degree of caution. Other concerns by the trade unions are more understandable, in the sense that the national plan calls for a review of dismissal procedures in the case of poor performance. Not in general, but in the case of poor performance. And one can understand that trade unions wouldn't like that. But I don't think that's the lethal final game. I think it's possible to work around these things. Nobody in South Africa is 100% happy with the plan. You can talk to the banks have got problems. You can talk to agriculture, they've got problems. Everybody has got a concern somewhere around the plan, and that I think is absolutely unavoidable. The question is, can a critical mass of the plan be implemented? And is there enough support in society for that? And it looks like it. You know, in spite of all the criticism of the plan, the ANC and the President, Mr. Zuma, consistently keep on coming out in support of the plan. As soon as there is somebody who said, no, we don't like it, then they say, that is what we're going to do. So I think the plan over time will get implemented. As I say in the book, we must accept that if only half of the national plan gets implemented, the country would be a very different place. And that, I think, is the way to look at the plan. It's not a short-term fix. It's a long-term direction that we're taking, which will put us on a different path.
You state in your book that growing the economy at 3% doesn't mean we're stuck in the mud or going backwards. It means we'll muddle through, we'll make progress. Do you honestly believe that's enough for South Africa?
You know, what is enough? What is enough? Now, Henry Ford famously apparently said, well, just a little bit more. And I think it's the same with the growth. You always want just a little bit more, say 3.5 or whatever. But what I try and illustrate in the book is that even at 3% growth, we can make progress socially, economically, with unemployment and so on. Because 3% growth is more than double our population growth rate, which means every time you register 3% growth and you don't have that many more people, you have surplus resources that can be used to develop society. And that is what's happening. So I make a strong case in the book for what I call incrementalism. And I think we must accept that that's the way we're going to develop. We're not going to be another China. We're not going to lift 300 million people out of poverty in 10 years. But we can, just by muddling along, we can improve the society, bring more people into the economy, advance the frontiers of modernity. It has already happened the last 20 years. I think it will carry on happening for the next 20.
Another section in your book relates to the need to live with and accept ambiguity in South Africa. Can you elaborate on this?
You know, South Africa, I think, is a difficult country in the sense that Alan Paton wrote way back in the 50s already, I think, that on a Monday morning in South Africa you wake up and you feel very good. On a Tuesday morning you wake up and you feel terrible. And on a Wednesday morning, you know, that kind of up and down. I mean, Alan Paton already put his finger on it. And I think that is where we are as a country. South Africa is not an easy country. It's not a straightforward story. All those who want to predict its collapse have been disappointed. The collapse is not happening. So what then is happening? Well, there's a slow struggling forward. Sometimes one step forward, 2 steps back, mostly 2 steps forward and 1 back. That's been the pattern the last half a century. So I think, and that's what I mean by ambiguity. It's to keep these 2 sides of South Africa, the feeling good on a Monday, the feeling bad on a Tuesday. It's to keep both sides in your head and just carry on doing what you're doing and living a good life. That's why I think the skill of ambiguity is so important.
What is your hope for the future of South Africa?
My hope is really that the current generation of young people in 20 and 25 years' time would have a life which is as good as the life that you and I are having. We're living well here. Many South Africans are not living that well. I would like to see all South Africans enjoying, or most of them at least, enjoying our living standard, enjoying our quality of life. That would be my wish.
Thank you. That was political and trend analyst JP Landman discussing his new book, The Long View.